All right, today, checkpoint 4A, we are graphing slope. So first thing to talk about is slope is really our change in y over our change in x, okay? This change, the top number, the y, tells us to go up and down. So if it is a positive number, it's telling us to go up. If it's a negative number, it is telling us to go down. So the top number is only ever going to tell you to go up or down. The bottom number is our change in x, which is side to side. And so if it is positive, you are going to the right. And if that number is negative, you are going to the left. Okay? Now, in terms of slope in a line, we have something called slope form right here. Okay? M is the slope, like it says in the directions here. So that number is where you're going to get your movements from. And then B is the y-intercept, or the starting point, we'll sometimes call it. Okay? Starting point meaning this is where you're going to start graphing. Okay? All right, so if we look at these problems, okay, those are pretty self-explanatory. This is going up 3 and to the right 3, so those are both positive movements. So your slope is simply 3 over 3, which is 1 over 1, okay? From a table, notice we are moving by 1s, and that's our x, so on bottom our x is going to be 1. And then here we are moving by 3s. So our slope is 3 over 1, okay? Now, our y-intercept, something we know about our y-intercept is that is always when our x value is 0. Always, 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 right? If we look at our graphs, all of our x-intercepts are where our all of our y-intercepts are where our x is 0. So if I wanted to find my y-intercept from a table or a graph, I'd look at where the x is 0. Okay, so if I wanted to write this as an equation, y equals, my slope comes first, 3 over 1 x, and then my y-intercept plus 15. That's my final answer. Okay. Now, in terms of graphing, here's how we graph. First, we start with the y-intercept, and then we use slope to find second point, because you only need 2 points to make a line. So starting with our y-intercept, that is telling us to find -3 on our graph. Okay, it will not be -3 on the x-axis. It is always on the y-axis. Okay, so that first point always goes on the up and down line, the y. Then our slope is going to tell us how to move. So if we have 2/5, both of these are positive, so we are moving up and to the right. So from our y-intercept, not from the middle. A lot of kids always want to go up 2 and 5 to the right from the middle. That's not what we're doing. We are moving from the y-intercept up 2, so I'm going up 2, and then to the right 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So in total, I moved up 2 and to the right 5 from my y-intercept, and there is my line for that equation. The last part is writing slope from 2 points, okay? Slope is your change in y over change in x, which basically means we can find the change in y's if we subtract our y's. We can find the change in x if we subtract our x's, right? This 2 and this 1 here, it doesn't matter which point you make your 2 and which point you make your 1. So this could be your first point and this could be your second point, or you could do it the other way. You could make this your second point and this your first point. The only thing that matters is if you start with the second point for your y's, you have to do the same thing for your x's, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this first point my first one. So this is the x of my first point, so I'm going to call that x1. And this is the y of my first point, so I'm going to call it y1, right? Because every point is an xy point. And then here, x2, y2. So those are the numbers I'm going to plug into this little formula over here. That will give me my slope. So first thing that comes up is the y2, so that's the -5. And then minus whatever the first y is. Now this one's a -7, so I have to be careful here. I'm going to have two negatives. So I'm going to put parentheses around it just to not confuse myself. Then on bottom, okay, so we've used up the y2 and the y1. Now, if I started with this point, I have to start with that point again. So up next is the -4, the x2, minus whatever the x1 is, which is 2. So up top, I have two negatives, which is going to turn that into a positive. So -5 plus 7 is going to get me 2. And then -4 minus 2 is -6. And I can simplify that to -1/3. Now, I often get questions about which number does the negative belong to? And the answer is it doesn't matter. Your negative could go with that 1 or that 3. So you could make this -1/3, or you could make it 1/-3. They're the same thing. The only thing you're not allowed to do is make both of those numbers negative, because a negative divided by negative is a positive, and this is no longer the same thing. So when you get a negative slope, it doesn't matter which one you make negative as long as you don't make both your x and your y negative. And that is all.